I'm Jeff Suzuki, chair of the mathematics department at Brooklyn College and author of Constitutional Calculus, The Math of Justice, and the Myth of Common Sense. One of the most important features about mathematics is that it allows us to quantify concepts. And that's important because when we don't quantify our terms, victory goes to the side that shouts the loudest. For example, we want our elections to be fair. But what does that mean? Does it simply mean that the person who gets the most votes wins? Well, that's fair if you're on the winning side, but what if you're on the losing side and the candidate who wins is the worst possible choice for you? So what if we try to quantify what we mean by fair? If we decide that fair is the same as supported by the most people, then our elections are fair and our plurality system, where everyone chooses one person, is what we want. But if we decide that fair is the same as acceptable by the most people, then plurality voting doesn't always give us someone who is acceptable by the most people. There are other voting methods that do better. For example, what's called ranked choice voting is one. There's also approval voting, where you can vote for as many candidates as you want, and the candidate with the most approvals wins, and several other types. If we know what we want, mathematics can tell us how to get it. Or let's take another big issue that's currently plaguing our democracy, the problem of gerrymandering. By distorting the lines of congressional districts, a political party can maintain a stranglehold on power long after they have become a minority party by packing one district with members of the other party, who can only elect one representative from that district, or by cracking districts so that members of the other party can't muster enough votes to win. In fact, it gets worse. The minority party can focus on the majority of the minority so that a party could appeal to as little as 25% of the voters and dominate the government. What could be done about that? In recent years, a number of attempts have been made to quantify when a district has too bizarre a shape. And so the usual response is to set up some mathematical requirement for what a congressional district should look like so that the district lines aren't too bizarrely drawn. But while this is an application of mathematics, remember the value of mathematics is in the quantification. These requirements force congressional districts to be regular in shape, whatever we mean by that, but is this really the problem we're trying to solve? The problem of gerrymandering is not that congressional districts are shaped strangely. The problem is disenfranchising voters, of making it so their votes are irrelevant, either because they're going to give their candidate an even larger margin of victory, or by diluting their vote so they can't elect a candidate. Ironically enough, we already have a solution, and in fact, it's the best possible. It's the way we apportion representatives to different states. Every state has to have at least one representative, and the representatives are apportioned by population. But the congressman from Wyoming represents about 500,000 people, while a congressman from New York represents about 700,000. Proportionally, a resident of New York has less power in Congress. Is this fair? No, of course not. But the method used to determine the number of congressmen, which is known as the Huntington-Hill method, has a remarkable feature. If you switch representatives from one state to another, and so you would increase some district sizes while decreasing other district sizes, you'll actually increase the unfairness as measured by the number of persons per representative. While the system we have doesn't produce completely fair apportionments, it does produce apportionments that are as fair as possible. Now imagine we do something like that with congressmen. Each political party would receive its fair share of congressmen based on the total votes it received in the state. Moreover, voters would not have to choose between two major parties. As long as a political party gathered enough votes statewide, it could send someone to Washington. This would eliminate gerrymandering and solve the real problem of voter disenfranchisement. What about that disparity in congressional district sizes? Again, what do we want? Do we object because each person in Wyoming has more political power than each person in New York? If that's the issue, then again, we already have a solution to that. every publicly traded company uses it, where the vote of a shareholder is equal to the number of shares they own. If each representative in Congress had one vote for every constituent, the congressman from New York would cast more votes because they represented more people.